While all of you are out there having fun with 2024's indie hit Balatro, which, let's face it, you're probably still playing, I was falling in love with the latest release from Grey Alien Games, Regency's Solitaire 1. Regency Solitaire 1 is a game of familiar pieces. There is nothing in this game that should surprise you if you've played many video games. It is, in a lot of ways, a game perfectly designed to be accessible to someone like my mother, who is, a retiree, and also a big fan of Regency period dramas, which is the narrative genre into which this game falls. Regency Solitaire is a game where you, I don't want to say play the main character of one of these stories, rather you are using that character as a focal point. This isn't a game where you are making choices for her, or where your choices or gameplay experiences seem to necessarily set the plot as it happens around you, but rather the game is a casual game of a type of solitaire which uses casual game refinements to add things like bonuses and upgrades and powers and special card interactions to just add a little bit of spice onto a form of solitaire that, like all forms of solitaire, is quite old and probably has multiple names. Trying to find the name for a particular form of solitaire is a fool's errand, because in any given situation you will find someone has renamed it at some point in that history. Even the most well-known types of solitaire these days tend to get just referred to as solitaire, and that means that they have also now been renamed from Klondike or Spider or whatever it was they were to start with. Solitaire fundamentally refers to a family of games where you use a 52-card 4-suit deck with cards valued from 1 to 13, ace through 10, then jack, queen, king, to play a game on your own. It is a game usually caring about pattern recognition or some form of complicating the deck, and then the gameplay pattern is to uncomplicate it. It is a series of games which are so complicated as to defy all mathematical confoundings, and it is indeed, at the moment, something of an open problem as to whether or not solitaire, as we usually use the term, is even solvable. I've spoken about solitaire in the past, and I've also spoken about other games that use solitaire to do different things. The Solitaire Conspiracy, which I still love very much, is a game that uses a form known as Tower Solitaire. What you have here in this iteration, in Regency Solitaire 1, is a game where you will be presented with a field of cards, some face down, under cards to prevent access, and some face up that you can access. And the face up cards that are accessible have to be untouched by other cards, so effectively higher levels of cards lock out lower level of card. Sort of familiar to me in the way of Mahjong games. And any card can be taken from the stack by connecting it to the card you currently have from the stock of deck with an adjacent number. The numbers loop, so kings can be connected to aces and also queens. Every card can be connected to 2 numbers, which makes them equally valid. I'm sure that the math of this particular game is something one can solve, and I don't know if this game is one where it is possible for the game to generate a failed state, but the core of how this game works is that you are going to be looking at a field of some face-up cards that you're allowed to take, and some other cards you aren't allowed to take, trying to navigate your way through the puzzle before you run out of cards and can't take any more. It is fundamentally not a difficult game to understand. It's not a difficult game to play. You don't require deeply complicated mathematical understandings, and you don't need to know that much about how card games in general work. The game's difficulty comes from how it arranges cards, and eventually how it does things like locking cards behind doors that you have to unlock by taking a certain number of a certain type of card. Broadly speaking, though, what you are looking at here is a game that is match 3 level complicated and not trying to endlessly wring money out of you. So you are expected to buy the game and play through it in a reasonable amount of time, and then probably play it on an endless mode for more after. So the game engine is fine, fundamentally, just structurally fine. The story the game is being used to tell is the story of a fairly conventional Regency drama as depicted by someone who probably quite likes watching movies called Pride and Prejudice, and also doesn't much want to read a book called Pride and Prejudice. Not to devalue anyone's bona fides, it's just I don't get the same impression that the depth of intricate language interconnection that you will see in Jane Austen's work shows up in this game. What you then get is a game where you're playing, as it were, a girl as she deals with one suitor she doesn't like and one suitor she does like, but doesn't necessarily think that she can say that she likes him because this is the Regency period of England, and Lord knows the English, that strange and mythical culture of people, aren't actually whole humans at this point in history, and instead have to make do with extremely strict rules for social convention, which everyone definitely followed and no one was boning all over the place behind the backs of the clergy. This game's story is not complex. It is fundamentally about 13 characters. And you know it's about 13 characters because you can look at the cards where they are all depicted. Each character has a position in the deck which comically links them to other characters to whom they are important in the plot. Our protagonist is the ace, and next to her in the deck is her best friend and a father figure. Then you have, furthest away from her in the deck, the odious suitor she does not like, and between her and him, there is the suitor she does like, standing guard, protecting. This is something I find incredibly charming, and also, needlessly clever. The game didn't need to make the relationships between the characters map out on a number line as if, oh yeah, I can see how that all works. But it does. And that's the thing. Regency Solitaire is not a game that's going to blow your mind. It is not a endless, bottomless well of card game fun that you will stream for hours and watch elaborate combos happening. It is a game with that rhythmos edge, that desire to play a game that is satisfying to watch the rules interact. But it isn't a game that's going to necessarily have that level of deeply enjoyable combo synergy. The combos are about looking at the board and seeing a sequence that you can map out. And sometimes seeing a face-down card and thinking, if that's a 3, and I flip it, I can get a very long combo. Because, yes, of course, it does have combos. You get score, and that score increases as you do well. So far, so good. It is a solitaire game, and solitaire is hard to define. It is a Regency period drama, cooked down to the syrup for this particular type of game format. And it's also got things that make it satisfying. So, broadly speaking, good game, eh? Great game. Yes, I like it a lot. There's more to be said. There is always more to be said. One of the things I like about it is that it does a good job of making the cards feel tactile. Almost every great solitaire game, by the way, that you ever play is one which does something about this, that makes the actual feelings of the digital interactions of cards feel like it has a sound and a presence to it, that these things snap into place or they get shuffled. The number of different ways you can make a riffle shuffle sound that a video game can then play back to you is always impressive. There's a sound library somewhere, I'm sure. But that's not the thing that has me currently sitting up at night thinking about Regency Solitaire. Because Regency Solitaire is very funny. It's funny in a very dry, witty way. It's making fun of itself in a lot of ways. But you'll find items that you can buy that give you upgrades. The connection between the upgrade and the effect of the upgrade is tenuous, but that's okay. We are at a visual novel level of complication. The game system is there, and it plays out, and then the story happens, and the two things don't really have to touch very much at all. But It's that it's that system of upgrades where you will see all the witty writing, all the funny jokes about, for example, the quintessential English drink from India. And that's the system where, for all that this game is extremely trying to be about England and trying to be about British history, the currency you get for doing well in this game is gold. Grey Alien Games are kind of heroes to me. They're a indiest of indie companies with a tiny footprint. I believe it is currently 2 people. They've given multiple talks about making games as never having hits. They are people who have been very open about development processes that help to inform my own idea of making out loud, and also the way that we talk about games being deeply flawed and wanting a form of game making that was maximally inclusive. So even, as it were, the mid games that people can love are still meaningfully part of the conversation. When I describe this game as the latest release from Grey Alien Games, Regency Solitaire 1, that's not really a joke. Because it is. Regency Solitaire 2 has come out, and subsequently multiple other games have come out. But the most recently released game by Grey Alien Games is Regency Solitaire 1 on the Switch. And the thing about that is Grey Alien Games used to re-release their own games. They wouldn't take them down. They would just go, we're releasing this game. And because no one had noticed, because no one in the press had picked up on it, they just did a release event for a game that you could already buy. Because what's the lie there? What is the actual thing being hurt there? They're saying, we're launching this game at this point. You could play it before that point. Plenty of games do that. No one thinks that's weird. Is that the point where they're going to stop developing it? No, everyone keeps developing a game after its release point. There's nothing weird there. Is it being promoted as a new patch? Nah. Why? Because you don't care. You didn't care about it before. Grey Alien Games are people who have successfully hacked a part of the attention economy, and I adore it. And I think that they are very funny and very clever. I'm already the kind of person who has to put an ad blocker on Solitaire websites to stop myself from whiling around hours of time on them. So this game was already going to hit me pretty hard. But this Smooch Month, I always struggle with finding games that are about romance. This is an excellent example of what a game about romance normally looks like. There is a fun game I like to play, and in a second plot arc alongside it, you have the story. It's fine. It's funny. It's good. You should check it out. It just came out after all.